Om Mantranam Jivabhuta Tuya Smrita Shakti Rupaya Tatahina Vavarohe Nishfalaha Sharda Bravat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. She, whom the ancient seers of India came to realize as the imperishable Shakti, is the soul in all slokas and sutras of the various religious scriptures of India. Without her, O fair ones, all the cosmic principles of the many worlds would be like clouds with no rain. She is the perfect I consciousness, existing inherently in the multitude of words, and the very being of non-duality, whose essence is Advaita. Om, peace, peace, peace. Sahana vavatu, sahana bunaktu, sahavirdum karavavahai, deva tedasvi navaditamastu, ma vidvi shovahai, om shantihi, shantihi, shantihi. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May Brahman sustain us. And may Brahman illumine our thinking process. Free us from fault finding and impediments, and reveal to us the essence of the Dharma and the teachings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. We have gathered here on the big island of Hawaii in SRV Loka to take up a second and final class on the subject of the mystic and the visionary. The mystic being that one who proceeds basically through the oracle of sound, everything from what I just chanted, slokas and sutras, and the word itself, which we know is Om, spelled A-U-M, philosophically. And then the soul who proceeds toward the light with inner visions and so forth. And we made the point last week that they're not necessarily separate beings, nor are their paths unconnected in any way. They happen to, like rivers flowing and mingling their waters, meet each other at certain junctures of spiritual life and practice, and then have certain facets also that are unique to their path. So we can take a quick look and review at the chart that I created for this series first, because few people weren't here in the room last week, and there might be some new viewers watching this class. So a remark was made when we set up today for class that there's not just one title on this chart, but maybe 3 or 4, possibly even 5 or 6. You can see them there. I didn't leave any stone unturned or any base uncovered when I brought out several different ways of expressing these two powerful pathways, these avenues towards enlightenment. So the main title there was The Way of the Visionary and the Path of the Mystic. Its subtitle was And the Radiant Sky of Awareness and the Pulsating Sea of Sound. So there you had the idea of the light lighting up the sky of awareness, and the ocean of sound being that orotund sound of Om, which is an unstruck sound, which strikes itself continually, out of which all um, cosmic principles that I just chatted about, which would be like clouds with no rainfall if the Mother Shakti was not there in them, the Rishi said. Those principles that collect there around and emanate from the word Om. We know such things as Father, Mother, and Guru, or Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the outer, the inner, and the transcendent, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. There are so many assignments you can place with the A, U, and M of Om if you spell it philosophically correct like that. And that teaching goes very deep for the mystic. They're pretty much on the trail back to the source once they get embodied, which is the positive side of some of you who've gone on to telling us the minute you're born, you're rushing towards death. Today I looked at the slokas of the Yamastakam, which I want to put down. At my age, it'd probably be a good thing to do so. That is verses honoring Yama, the Lord of Death, and finding out his history. He's actually born of the sun god. Surya is one of the two sons born in that to that great being. And they named him Dharma Raja, King of Dharma. And he's responsible for assigning people to all this Dharakasha, these inner realms that we even heard Jesus talk about in the Middle East not too long ago, compared to the ancient Indian scriptures. So these beings come and go, as Krishna says in the Gita, at the behest of that power of transition, you might call the Lord of Death. And also, he's assigned names like the destroyer of attachment, because if people get too attached here to matter, which we see has happened far too often and in too many cases, and forget their Atman, that is their true soul, their divine nature, their Swarupa, and they don't hear the Swarupa Gyan, which is one of the facets of a chart I'll show you soon, the wisdom of their essence when they're living by being born into a dharmic family and hearing the truth from your parents, rather than having to search for a rare guru that might speak it in a world like this, in a day like today, in modern times. Then you'll have those beings embarking on one of these two paths, usually, path of sound and the path of light. You see it there put in terms of Jyoti, light, there's the Sanskrit for it, and Shabda, sound. And there's the Om sign, as we call it. The Om sign we had on our t-shirts back in the 60s when we were younger, and saw it painted on rock walls in New York City when we went there and visited. It was appearing in blue light posters on walls of friends' homes. We saw that sacred sign everywhere. And must say that back then we probably didn't know anywhere near the deep implications, what it signifies, like some that I just mentioned, the Trinity, your states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, and what's beyond them too. And the matrix of all things, out of which all worlds come, as Sri Ramakrishna told us. He saw Om in his meditations, and he said, I had to come down a long way from Brahman to find Om. So you can see that there's a lot of subtle space between the vibrating of the word and the witness of the word called Brahman, or Brahmatman. That's the first interesting point about his saying. Then he went on to say that he saw all the worlds coming in and out of that vibrating matrix called Om. And that's the second interesting thing he said. The third interesting point of his remark about it was that no time was passing when he saw the worlds coming in and out. So it gives us this inkling of what's called an eternal moment, or the illusion of time. You can put that in a positive or a negative way when you look into kala and its phases, kalas, which are actually cosmic principles in the cosmic mind. There is a beginning to time, although we say it's beginningless and endless. It does have an origin, and it does have a disappearance as a cosmic principle. So that's what kicks everything rolling into these waves that come off an ocean. Might be a perfectly placid day with no wind whatsoever and an equilibrium on Earth that causes no waves to be seen and no wind to be blowing. And then something moves the Earth and something stirs the air. And then all of a sudden waves start rising off of that self-same ocean. And that's how the mystic wants to reach this peace that passes all understanding and see and be in the absolute stillness. They like shanti, shanti, shanti very much. And they like to still all vibrations just to see what it would be like to feel that experience. Because here on Earth, of course, those vibrations scarcely gets stilled ever. It's set up 24-hour period and revolving of the Earth and so forth. So you have a dark side and a side of light when the sun's shining and the moon's shining, or sometimes even it's gone. And you have this day and night period of 12 hours each or so, whereas activity decreases in the night and increases in the day. But there are still a lot of activities going on at night, even if you discount people who like the nightlife, as they say. But just look at deep sleep and dreaming, how people dream at night, and how much activities there's going on, how many vibrations there are in the mind when people sleep. And that's called swapna, dreaming state. So it kind of points to the teaching of no respite for people here. They can't have absolute peace. The mind always is ruining that for them. They're always vibrating in some way, the chitta vrittis, as yoga, father of yoga, tells us. So anyway, a little bit more about this right-hand side of the chart for you and the Om sign and what it signifies, and what Ramakrishna said about it to kind of accent it as a major principle for us to meditate upon. That's why all the mantras begin with Om. I just chanted that she's the mother of all the mantras and she's the meaning in all the words. She's also the essence of non-duality. So she impregnates everything with meaning and she gives formlessness form. She gives timelessness time. And she causes that which is not vibrating to vibrate again and to return back to non-vibration. Manifestations of your power, behold, with power of immeasurable might, forces that swell the sea of birth and death, forces that change the unchanged, then changed again. Lo, where should we seek shelter save in thee? As Vivekananda wrote about this divine mother force who stirs the ocean of existence, and all this activity comes out of this roiling ocean of pure sound, which is Om. You might say also that it emits a great light because consciousness has its own light that's called Svayam Jyoti. There is Jyoti, of course, which is light of various kinds, like the light of the sun, light of the moon, light of fire, light of lightning, light of a glowworm, light of a candle, light of a lamp, and light of prana that flows through us, that lights up our waking and dreaming states. We have light in dream too. Have you ever thought about that? Why isn't it dark in here? My senses are gone. But your whole dream state's lit up by something, isn't it? So that's that light of prana and psychic prana. It shows you that the source of light is within, not without. That's the mistake Western thinkers make in Western education and science and so forth, is they think that everything came from a physical source, like a sun and water and earth. And all the five elements are very important for life on earth, no doubt, but they're not there in spiritual life. They disappear, and so does the light of the sun and the light of the moon. There are slokas for it. Those sitting here in the room have memorized those slokas. Na tatra, Suryabhati, na Chandra Tarakam, Surya's sun, Chandra's moon, Nemo Vidyut. Dobati, that is Vidyut is lightning. Kuto Yamagnihi, Agni is fire. So the ancients put it very nicely. It's not that sun. No, it's not that light. It's not that moon's light. There's another light that makes them shine. That's the light of yourself. That's the light of the Atman. And that's what the mystic and the visionary are moving towards, back to the source of all light and sound. And everything here is a hint for it. Everything they hear, as we chanted last week, I sang a song about it. Ono Boli Bajikali, Ichahoy, beautiful Bengali words about how the mantra and the sounds of every word have mother power in them. So those are hints to the psychic and to the mystic who follow. And here's some more titles for that. The mystic is into the sonorous sound, subtle sound that they hear in everything. Like when they go into meditation when they're very young, we won't have to necessarily go through all these lists again. Remembers past life experiences early on. We're talking about the luminary who sees light. They see light while engaging in spiritual practice. They attain the vision of the Ishtam in deep meditation. Well, what is that light that made me see the Ishtam? Nobody ever asks that. Oh, there's the Ishtam. How beautiful. I had a vision. But what about the light that made the vision appear to you inside, where there was no light of the sun, of the moon, of fire, of lightning, even of prana? All of a sudden, a light of psychic prana, or a light that emits out of your thoughts, which is intelligence itself, has lit up the interior of your mind, and you can see that form because of that. That's what the visionary is after. Light up my mind, illumine my mind, illumine my thinking process. We just chanted at the beginning of class. And finally here, perceives the ocean of light when they open the third eye. So this center, this lotus, this chakra, that's at the very top of the stem of what's called the Sushumna channel, which is symbolized by the spine and its hollow tube, is there in the mind. And that highest or penultimately highest center called the third eye, or the Jnana Chakshu. Wasn't it last week that I showed you mentions of the third eye in 7 different religious paths of the world? Many of those paths are mystic, and many of them are light-filled. In Christianity, we showed you 2 or 3 ways in which it was talked about. Some of the Christians are mystics. Some of them are visionaries. The seers are more mystic. The saints are more visionary. So basically, there's this subdivision, even amidst the different religious traditions of the world, which these people set common foot on and walk side by side with in order to find the goal of human existence. Well, for the mystic, then, there's another list there really quick. Intuits the primal sound of Om when they're young, perceives the presence of vibration in and throughout everything. So one sees light, one feels vibration. In meditation, hears Om from the Manipura upwards. One of those chakras, lotuses, spiritual centers is there, aligned with the navel, and it's just prior or preceding the opening of the heart chakra. So they'll hear it there. That's the highest heaven, and they'll get out of heaven by the sound of that's emanating there of Om at the Manipura. That's what they use to penetrate through the 3 worlds to get to the 4th chakra. They're looking inside. So they'll hear a great sound in heaven, and they're about to fall back to earth, because heaven always leads back to earth. So those are the 3 worlds. So there'll be very good, virtuous people in heaven, but they haven't necessarily transcended the desire for rebirth, the desire for enjoying matter, wealth, objects, owning lands, and having relationships with other embodied beings. They haven't transcended that need or that desire yet. So they're hearing all of a sudden this profound sound, and if they're very virtuous, then they will penetrate through an orifice that leads out of the Anahata Chakra to the Vishuddha, and then to the Agya, and finally to the Sahasrara. This is all mystical language, isn't it? But you can see how it comes to us through the power in words, which is the power of the mystic, and through the power of seeing or perceiving inwardly, which is the power of the luminary. The last one here is beholds the word and understands all of its phases and expressions. There's a lot to understand about the word. I think there's much more to understand about the mystic way than there is about the visionary way. When you see, you believe, as it says here. For the visionary to see is to believe, but for the mystic to hear is to want to go deeper and deeper. So the word provides everything to do with that. Once you see the light, it's I believe you. Once you hear the word, it's can you tell me more? Isn't it? So that's some of the main characteristics, or the two different main characteristics of those two paths. The light convinces, the sound attracts, right? I mean, just look at the moth, how light attracts. That's all I really wanted to do, was to reorient this to people who weren't here last week, both online and here in the classroom, and also as a review that everyone needs. So we know that we probably can assign different elements of our beings, the acts we've done in the past, the thoughts we have with the mystic or the visionary. You can probably see inside of yourself tendencies towards both. How you've grown to this period, not just in earthly life, but in spiritual life too. So it's good to take stock of all of this, as we say. And talking about past, it would be nice to look directly. We looked at the sun god last week, but we didn't get around to this. Now that we've reinformed ourselves and remember this chart, we'll go to the path of the chart of dreams awake, from bonds be free. This is one of Swami Vivekananda's sayings that he used to tell us here in the West when he came. You talk about lucid dreaming, or you talk about this life's a dream and so forth, and he would say to you, well, this life's a dream, though true it seem, but the only real is he the living. That's being fully awake in what's called yogic insomnia. I could have brought that new chart too. But basically, he would say, then from dreams awake, from bonds be free, know the truth. Thou art he. He'd look at the men. And the women, he'd look at them and say, thou art she. You are Shiva, you are Shakti. You're one of the manifestations of these great masculine and feminine parts of the Lord. So you can see here, when it came to dreaming, he was rather non-compromising, as with everything else. But we did hear him say this once, life is a succession of dreams. So he's admitting that and telling us that so that we will take waking up seriously. Then he went on to say, but my ambition is to become a conscious dreamer. So he's saying basically that as long as he's going to be taking bodies to help us wake up, he has to take on the dream too. This is what we have to remember about the perfect soul, because Sri Ramakrishna called him Nitya Siddha. His name was Narendra when he was a boy, before he got the monastic name. So Sri Ramakrishna say, oh, Naren, which is short for Narendra. Naren, he's a perfect soul. So everyone started to look at him like, well, really? We didn't know this. And so if Sri Ramakrishna said it, we're going to have to take that seriously. So all of a sudden, they started going to him and asking him. And Sri Ramakrishna would say, don't tell him that. Because as soon as he really realizes it, he'll leave us. That's waking up for the dream. So if basically you come to know that life's a dream and that it really means nothing in the end, that the only real meaning is you, yourself, your Atman, Brahman, and that's the only time you'll find anything truly satisfying, truly fulfilling, truly lasting, and truly loving, is when you find the connection between your apparently individualized self and the Supreme Self, which we call Ishvara, sans, or i.e. Brahman. Brahman can appear also as a great being like an avatar. That's the highest consciousness embodied there. So my explanation of Swamiji's statement there basically is that he has admitted to us that this is a series of dreams you're going through. And if you can't wake up from it right away yet, you still have desires to fulfill, you still have things to do, you're even here at the behest of the Divine Mother to help waken others, then be a conscious dreamer. It's a beautiful thing. So basically, we can make contrasts between two Sanskrit words there. There's the world bewitching Maya, which Ramakrishna said, be very careful about that. Watch it from a distance. Don't get involved in it. And then there's this beautiful play of Leela, the Mahalila of the Avatar. Look at how many great souls have a Mahalila attached to them. Christ, 500 years before Christ, Buddha, Krishna's Mahalila, thousands of years before that, Ram's Leela before that, Sita and Ram and Hanuman. How many beautiful, these great souls, how many beautiful Leela, examples of Leela can we look back on and enrich our meditations with? This is part of manana. This is part of contemplation. You hear it, you read about it, that's hearing it, right? But now you want to see it. So you're a mystic and you're a visionary, and really wrapped up in one. As soon as you hear it, you want to see it. As soon as you see it, you want to be it, right? Hear, see, be. That was on the chart last week we looked at under the heading of Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. So that's how all of these wonderful yogas and pathways are wrapped up in one another and lead us unfailingly to the supreme goal. So if he wants to be a conscious dreamer, then we probably saw him do that in his recent lifetime with us, which was only some 39 years old of time that he spent with us. And so we saw a perfect soul amongst us at that time here, even on the soil of America. It's very amazing to think that way. Here's something else he said about these paths. I pray that all will be free. That is to say, may know that they are free. And if they are to dream again, let us pray that their dreams be all of peace and bliss. How many dreams are being had here that are nightmarish? Of course, people suffering. Of course, people who are evil. Of course, people who are misusing power. Of course, people who are attached to matter and have no love of God. How many strange dreams, nightmaric kinds of dreams are going on here? But he wants us to have dreams of peace and bliss. Blessings of love and light for the visionary. Blessings of peace and bliss for the mystic. He goes on, I have no bonds here below. So that means on earth. I have seen life and it is all self, ego. Life is for this self. Love is for this self. Honor for the self. Everything for the self. All four of those words are lowercase, means the ego. He said that early on. It is all for the self, ego. I look back and scarcely find any action I have done for self. So I'm content. But the world is so little, and life so mean a thing. Existence so servile, that I wonder and smile that human beings, some of them rational souls, should be running after the self, so mean and detestable a prize. And here's the truth. We are caught in a trap, and the sooner we get out, the better. It's a trap of our own devising. So back to the title of the chart. From dreams awake, from bonds be free. There's a song in India that uses those words and says, "O dreamer awake, you must, you must." That was how our founder here, Lex Hickson, Ramakrishna Das Baul, Sheikh Musafir, Sheikh Jarahi, Nur Jarahi has translated those Bengali word into English. From awake from dreams, you must, because why? You're running after this so servile and mean a prize. The self is guiding you, not the mother. So you want to take highest guidance and reach the goal of human existence. That's freeing yourself from these bonds. He says further, when the eternal eyes open, and when the internal eyes open, light flashes all of a sudden. The dream vanishes, and intuitively we come face to face with the greatest mystery in nature, existence. So there's a beautiful statement about the luminary, right? The one who's following the path of light, the visionary. So all of a sudden light flashes and he sees that light. Very convincing. So stretched out below, you see this path of yogic fire. How do we get onto that path of yogic fire from an earth, from a world like this, where people are dreaming by the billions every night, thousands and thousands of nightmarish dreams that cause blockages, to this path, like this path of fire, this Christ-like figure is walking here on the chart, which is like your sushumna. It's like a grand highway leading to the highest worlds and beyond the worlds too, as we said. So that path of yogic fire is running with molten intelligence, the yogis say. That intelligence they select amongst all other principles to be the best guide for you. You have to have that honed, and you have to have that revived, and you have to take it away from matter and lower sciences and knowledge and place it back on the goal of human existence, which is for the visionary, the light. Meditate upon the light. For the mystic, meditate on that sound that's vibrating, like a huge fallen log full of bees humming there. Yavatut was sitting in meditation in the forest once, and all of a sudden his ears tuned into this rumbling sound, deep, deep rumbling. And so he opened his eyes and he said he was sitting on this big log. It was just full of bumblebees, a big nest of bees. And they were humming in there, sipping the honey, taking care of the queen and all that. And so he saluted them as his teacher for teaching them about Om, this inner sound that's always vibrating inside, at the very core of our being. Shabda Brahman, Nada Brahman, Omkara, various assignments you use for word. So how to get on a pathway that flows like that, that shines with light and hums with sound, right? So there you see at the beginning, you're going to have to fulfill your earthly desires. You're going to have to satisfy stages and steps for spiritual life. It's oil and water do not mix, as we know. So if we take this and it's oil and colored oil and water, as well, they're separate. So spirit and matter, consciousness and ignorance, Brahman and Maya, Purusha and Prakriti, whatever you want to assign to them from the old language. If you shake that then and say to the kids sitting in front of you, do oil and water mix? And they say, yes, they do, sir, they do. And you say, then sit there for 45 seconds and see if your conclusion is the same after the process begins to happen. And so sure enough, they watch as oil and water cease to mix. They separate themselves. And that's the teaching of discrimination, which most people in the world do not have, religiously, philosophically, or spiritually. They somehow want to dream that the two are together in one thing. But consciousness never dreams. The very thought that awareness can dream is ridiculous, is nonsense, to quote Vivekananda. It's ever awake. We've heard about that, so we humorously coined a saying called yogic insomnia. Well, I don't sleep anymore. My body can fall asleep and rest, but my mind stays awake and active in the inner realms, see? And it gets more and more awake and more infected with yogic insomnia as I approach the Lord. Ishvara first through the visionary, Brahman second through the mystic, right? Nice to keep that cylinder nearby when it's needed. So Path of sound, path of light is what we're coursing along right now, sort of back and forth as the rivers mingle their waters. So if you were to satisfy steps for spiritual life, to set foot on that path of molten intelligence, first thing you would do is be to reduce your worldly attachments. It's a teaching from the Jivan Mukti Viveka. Reduce your worldly attachments. They know most people who aren't renunciates, who aren't monastics and so forth, are very hard for them to give it up all at once. So they ask you to start reducing that. Even your food intake, if you're attached to food, or reduce your hours of laziness and get your mind into periods of study. Whatever you have to do to reduce those things that are impeding you and increase those things which are good for you, that's what you have to do to set your foot on this path of yogic fire. Secure a path and then illumine guru. So if we look at our own paths here in the West, the great gurus that Sri Ramakrishna produced for us out of the Swamis of the Ramakrishna order, who then started Vedanta societies throughout the United States, some dozen of them to start and growing ever since, had these great souls like our teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, whose picture I look at here when I share this wisdom like he shared with me. Those great souls were the great teachers. So you have to find a teacher like that. Fortunately, I found one across the river in the very city I grew up in, who was there the whole time I was going to grade school and high school, and I found him just after college. And then I heard the truth from him. And you hear the truth, and the truth sets you free. So that's what this path of yogic fire is all about. It begins to destroy all this weightiness of mind that's called nowadays brooding, depression, stress, unhappiness, malcontentedness, attachment, and so forth. Those things start to become a thing in the past as this light lights up the inner regions and the sound intrigues you. Where is the source of that sound? Sri Ramakrishna said, if you go over sand dunes looking for this huge sound in the distance, finally you break over the last sound dune and you see the ocean with all its waves. That's how going inside to find Om is like, he said. You go over these sand dunes of mundane human convention and personal desires, individualized karmas, distractions of all kind, because you know that there's something more meaningful at the very foundation behind them all, and you intuit it. I think both the path of the mystic and the path of visionary heavily based in intuition. Not of the intuition that's of an ordinary kind, of course, like we say, oh, like I think I can somehow ascertain what's going to happen in the future. No, it's like you're in a timeless state now. So you're beginning to pick up on the fact that everything happens in an eternal moment, and the happenings themselves are going on in that separation part called water, you see. That's nature. And the colored part is your own consciousness called spirituality. And so everything that's taking on ramifications that happen to the body and mind mechanism happen in nature, not in you. Then you say, oh, I've got the secret now. And you begin to detach yourself further and further. And this is what happens when a path and a guru comes to you. You see a person who has realized this. A man has come to me from a land that never sleeps, Ram Prasad sings in one of his nice songs in Bengal. A man has come to me from a land that never sleeps. Now all my dreams have become radiant meditations. So he transforms everything about life into everything that has to do with spiritual life. And the poison goes away and the nectar starts flowing. That's what it says here. Transmits human love into the divine love. That's a process that can only be understood if a person attempts it and succeeds. Then the old weights of emotional love and the unrequited love and all of the failed relationships and divorces that are going on, despite children or not, are beginning to transform into a love that seeks only the highest for each other. And that highest, of course, is the Atman in everything, not for the sake of the baby, that the baby is loved. It's for the sake of the Atman in the baby. It's not for the sake of the wife that the wife is loved. It's for the sake of the Atman in the wife. It's not for the sake of the husband that the husband is loved. It's for the sake of the Atman in the husband. Yajnavalkya puts it very nicely in the Upanishads. So makes it very clear to his two wives that this is the reason why you follow a spiritual path, is to find the source of the Atman and everything. Even such a beautiful thing as a baby, cannot be loved if it hasn't got that eternal Atman in it. It's going to disappoint you, if not sooner or later. Everything here will do that. So you have to find the eternal among the non-eternal, right? Nicho, nichanas, chetanas, chetananam. It's got your very name in it, that sloka. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman, tamatmastam yenu pashanti diraha. So it's got these beautiful slokas in the Upanishads that say, from the real to the unreal, I must go. From the unreal to the real, I must go. From the eternal away from the non-eternal, I must go. So that's how human love gets transmuted into divine love. The next step along that pathway of yogic fire you can see there is devoutly propitiating divine reality. When you find it inside yourself, it's very easy to bow down to it and to propitiate it. People do it externally in pujas, in front of images. That's called Gauna Bhakti. People do it inside in their mind with their adoration for the vision they saw with the light of the visionary. That's called Raga Bhakti. People do it further inside in terms of what's beyond external and internal. I was just reading the Vajra Shuchika Upanishad today and studying it again. That diamond needle penetrates through. And where does the diamond needle come from? How was it made? Who fashioned this? Who sharpens it? How can you sharpen it? It can penetrate through everything quickly. Who owns it? Well, where did it come from? There's a beautiful Upanishad about it, diamond needle, Vajra Suchika, and how it can pierce through all ignorance quickly. So that's the idea here, is you get attracted to that great light or that deep sound, and it helps you, like a diamond needle, penetrate through all of the conditionings, all the sublations, all the overlays, all the false superimpositions, all the veils, including the three gunas, and bring you straight up to the source of your own true self. Meditate upon the Lord as your own self, seated in your heart, right? Meditate upon yourself, the Lord as your own self, seated in the heart. That takes three different things and fuses them into one. And most people don't think that way. You'll have to hear an Upanishad spoken by an illumined preceptor, like we just had on this path, tell you that. Say, wow, can that really be done? Can I really turn myself into the Lord I'm seeking? And can myself and the Lord then meditate in the heart upon Brahman, the reality? Can that really be done? Yes, my son, I've done it myself. You can do it too. And so there you have this impetus along the path of yogic fire. Next is contemplate mother wisdom within you. You can't help but do that once you've seen the light. When the visionary sees the light, they said, I can see the mother's wisdom in there. When the mystic hears a sound, he says, I can hear the mother's wisdom in there. So this translates both ways, the light of wisdom, the light of sound, and the light of the mystic and the visionary then are fused together and become one thing. Then that's one thing is called what? Non-duality. So finally, the greatest secret of mother wisdom is revealed. that there's this essence of non-duality that I just chanted about to begin the class with. She's the very essence of non-duality. Its very being is Advaita, is non-duality, non-dual truth. And therefore you find the mother within. My teacher, as I was saying yesterday at satsang, told us if you follow the Raja Yoga, which is not yet popular today, but if you follow the Raja Yoga, then you will find the Divine Mother of the Universe, because she's the Chitti Shakti there that Patanjali, Father of Yoga, talks about. So you'll come upon her as you study your own mind and you study the origin of your own thoughts and follow this yogic fire with all its concomitants, make all the connections. And then all of a sudden, where will you be? Where will your doubts be? Where will your fears be? Where will the corrosion of consciousness be when this light and this sound comes upon you and you find its source to be inside of yourself? That's a very stunning experience that, number one, can't be discounted. Number two, is very difficult to adjust to for the embodied being. It's going to take some time to adjust to that. So take your time up this path and go point by point and acknowledge the truth of non-duality. That is truth. Ajati, everything is unborn, everything is undying, everything is unoriginated. There is no beginning, middle, and end to everything. There's just the truth, and I am that. It's within me. And you take away all the divisive tendencies of the mind and all the barriers of separation from Maya. You take them away. It has nothing to rest on anymore. Where is the locus of darkness? Can it rest upon light? You find out that basically there is no such thing as darkness that's persistent. Ignorance goes away in the light of awareness, pure conscious awareness. At that point, then, as we just said, you're meditating on her form in your heart. And then you set foot on the pathway of yogic fire. You can see that being there, who might as well be like Vivekananda to us, walking that path of yogic fire. And they sing songs to him about that. Haririndra's chestitai kalagyo gayanai parigyanar buddho maharshi darshanai yatindro shakti bir vavanyam nastikim vivekanandate Prabhate Pranjali Narendra Shashave Narendra Yavane Narendra Kridane Narendra Shikshane Narendra Palane Narendra Yarpane Vivekanandate Prabhate Pranjali Vivekanandate Prabhate Pranjali. One of the many verses of the Vivekananda Prabhate Pranjalihi Stotram. And this English for that is, Hail Vivekananda, all excellences abide in thee. Your heroic actions remind us of Hanuman. Your unrivaled detachment marks you as a supreme renunciate. Your music and poetry blend artistry and heartfelt devotion. Your infinite wisdom reflects the state of abhijnaning. Profound inner visions mark you as a great rishi. In this auspicious dawn of illumination, O Vivekananda, we offer you our reverent salutations. Vivekananda te Prabhate Brandali. We find in that verse then mentions of both the mystic and the visionary, right? So he's described Vivekananda as that great hero, that great knower of wisdom, and that great visionary who saw the light of Ramakrishna emanating from him and took it into Nirvikalpa Samadhi and saw the light of Brahman. So all of that culminates in this path of yogic fire, which is the path of burning or molten intelligence that the yogis speak about quite often. And so the chart, to wrap it up, says here, O sleeping soul, awaken from your dense, sense-bound dreams. Rise up from your padded bed of glittering stars and empty galaxies, and tread the inward pathway of molten intelligence, shining step by shining step, to discover the ultimate source of your own pure conscious existence. So waking up from the padded bed of glittering stars and empty galaxies is what we're doing right now in space. Nothing out there. It's all inner space that we've forgotten about. The kings of heaven within us. The Daharakasha was the word they used back in the time in the Vedas were guiding them. So we must retrace our steps, turn and move inward to find out these great worlds that aren't empty anymore. They're full of mother wisdom. The further out we've gone to get to attachment to objects, the less and less of intelligence there is, the less and less of light we see, the less and less of true sound we hear from them. The senses become dulled and dumbed down. So this is a changing of the guard, you might say, of certain souls that have decided evolution's not the way we want to go, whether it's true or not. We want the involving path. We want to go back to our source. And so Vedanta, Yoga, Tantra, Buddhism, Shaktism, Samkhya, they all represent branches of that path that are moving up the Sushumna to different higher and higher centers to take us to the ultimate goal of realization. The mother talks about that too. May she bestow her boon of blessing on me forevermore, Vivekananda says, because there at those blessed feet I take refuge. Mother Supreme, may thy gracious face never be turned away from me, thy child. For lo, where shall we find shelter save in her? May she, the primal guide, my refuge be. These are all excerpts from his beautiful song called the Amba Stotram, of which I'm beginning to record right now too, for though we can all hear it. Beautiful verses that he wrote. That my teacher used to chant. My teacher would be offering flowers in this outer worship, and he would say, all of a sudden he would be prompted to say as he offered a flower to Swami Vivekananda, she who since birth has ever led me on through paths of trouble to perfection's goal, mother wise in her own sweet and playful ways. She who has always and ever illumined my understanding, she the mother, she my all, is my resort, whether my work overflow with full fruition or with none. So this is what the great Vivekananda wrote when he was in the body for 39 years to help inspire us to find the mother of living intelligence by setting our foot on the path of yogic fire and walking it shining step by shining step within. The mother herself, of course, encourages this path. Here's an excerpt from a sloka from the Devi Bhagavatam. By practice of my yoga, you will become free of this samsara filled with old age and death. My revealed scriptures declare, Shakti Jnanam Vina Devi Nirvana Naiva Jayate, which means there can be no liberation without knowledge of the wisdom mother. So fix your heart and mind fully upon this supremely lustrous form of mine, which pervades all quarters, locales, realms, worlds, and countries. Sri Durga Devi, Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, great mother scripture that we've studied before together. So I could think of not many better charts to flesh out for us both the path of the mystic and the luminary. You can see them mixed in there quite easily and quite a bit. There was one other chart that had occurred to me that could further explicate a lot of that, and that's already here up on my right. We can use our remaining time to look at that. There's a lit up cranium for you, and you can see that it's got at its very center the eternal tree of yoga with all its branches. Very nice to have these branches depicted as stretching throughout the internal mind, which is your sukshma sharira. Remember, you have three bodies. You have your stula sharira, that's this body, physical body, with five elements and five senses and so forth. Then five active senses. And then basically then you have this inner body called the mental body called sukshma sharira. That's your subtle vehicle. You use that to go into dream tonight and abandon it when you hit deep sleep. But you take on what's called a causal body when you hit deep sleep, and that's called karna sharira. That's karna means cause. So actually, out of formlessness, there's these seeds, and when they were watered, it caused you to form a subtle body and go to heavens and worlds, the Taharakasha. Out of that, then you formed a physical body. Your consciousness went into a physical form, and here you woke up with your mantra, wah, wah, wah. Hopefully you want to change that soon to Om, 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 and follow that path. Or as she says here, Jaya Shakti Devi, she wants you to have this light of consciousness that she represents foremost in your mind. The part of the chart that we won't take the time to go through, but you can find it in the books that SRV has put out. It's called The 20 Truths of Truth. And you can see that it's using one word, Sanskrit words, to describe the nature of Brahman. And we can also turn those into one English word definitions, which is very amazing, shows you how facile English is too, to describe these words. Probably one of the main reasons why England got together with India was so that there would be some very positive results to that interaction. We'd have this beautiful Sanskrit being put readily into an English as versatile as a language as versatile as English is. So you can see here, Brahman is immeasurable, immediate, changeless, full of grace, indivisible, inconceivable, formless, unfathomable, incomparable, wonderful, stainless, indestructible, incomprehensible, imperishable, inexhaustible, undecaying, eternal, subtle, perfect, and indescribable. There's a lot of in words there I'm noticing, which gives us a clue to go inward to find Brahman, who is so well defined as far as words can say by Sanskrit and English put together like this. As far as the branches coming off this tree, you can see that that eternal tree of yoga has a root of awareness planted deep, deep in the subtle mind. And that pure conscious awareness effloresces. You can see there's efflorescing nadis of cognitive insight going on there. And along those nadis, consciousness can flow. What will help consciousness flow along those subtle channels is walking this path of yogic fire and seeing this molten intelligence flowing through everything. satisfying those steps of walking the yogic path, and begin to run higher thinking through the channels of your mind. It's very simply done, really. It's actually what's really hard is to keep thoughts of brooding, depression, and sorrow, and grief, and disappointment, and worthlessness from running through your mind. So remember, the path of yoga fire started by fulfilling these worldly desires and making sure that your mind is free of that, because that's the hardest thing to do once you've started on the spiritual path, is to keep the mind from falling down into what we call rajas and tamas, restlessness and dullness. That's the teaching of two of the three gunas. But if we can train the mind, I am willing to train. You go to the guru and say, I'm willing to train for this path of yogic fire. And then he says, well, then first of all, you want to aim for sattva. I want you to balance your breath. I want you to balance your mind. And I want you to balance your thoughts. When you've done that, come back and I'll give you further instructions. Because the beautiful molten intelligence, the path of non-duality, the Divine Mother herself is all waiting on you to do this, to make these inward steps, to make some progress along the path of spirituality. So you can see there how important it is to open up these nadis to higher thinking. And that's one of the facilities of hearing the truth, then contemplating it. It's called Shravana and Manana. The Manana part is missing. People they hear the truth and they want to jump to the direct experience, but they have to roll the truths that they heard back here on the path from the scriptures and from the guru over in their mind for a long period of time. I'd say 5 or 10 years is not enough time to give to those profound truths in order to have them penetrate deeply down into the interior of the subconscious and unconscious mind and do its purificatory work there. Nothing else better than that, to do that kind of work of latent karmas and samskaras that are deep down in the mind. So you bring consciousness there. What's that called to one path? Light. What's it called to the other path? Sound. So when a visionary wants to bring light there, he thinks about light. He meditates on light. Meditate upon the Lord as your own self, seated in your heart. See the light of the Lord, of Brahman, penetrating through everything. It's called the Brahman effulgence in some traditions in India. Have you seen the Brahman effulgence yet? They'll ask you. And other walks of spiritual life, you'll hear, have you heard the word yet? Or which part of the word is that? From my guru or the word that is sounding itself? Both, but it probably usually starts with the sound of the guru's voice. Like Vivekananda said about Sri Ramakrishna, I always hear his voice and hear his sound of his voice now after he passed. So Vivekananda was always recalling, I'm just the same young boy now as when I went to him when he was alive in the body, and he taught me all these truths. Right? So that path of light and path of sound were established deeply in the great Swami by the great master at the behest of the Holy Mother. You've got three great beings there, the Holy Mother, the great master, the great Swami. And that's what SRV here is built upon, Sharda, Ramakrishna, and Vivekananda. So if we're manning that path, if we're beginning to set footfalls upon the fire of molten intelligence, then we're going to have to take that to the nth degree and begin to run higher wisdom in the channels of our mind daily. I've been putting out 5 God blogs a week to keep your minds on Brahman and Shakti and Jnanam and Ishtam and other spiritual principles. So that you'll think about Brahman once a week in a deep way, 5 times a week in a deep way. Once a day would be good. So that becomes a habit after a while, and the mind all of a sudden thinks, I don't want to descend from this pinnacle anymore. I find the view to be the best here. I want to stay here. So karmas, samskaras, brooding, um, ignorance, sleep of awareness, corrosion of consciousness, whatever it's called, that I want to resist that and create a platform where I never fall below the heart chakra again into the three worlds. Ramakrishna said, fear from the heart, I'm calling you. Come up out of the three worlds of transmigration, realize your eternal self, and be with me. You want to be with me? I can't come down to you. You must come up to me. It's like trying to save a drowning person. They'll pull you under if you let them glom onto you, drag you down. So you have to talk to them from a distance. No, I'm not coming over there. You swim to me, you see, because I know you're going to drown me. I've had this experience several times in my surfing days when I was in my 20s, saving sailors from getting drowned a couple times. They should know the ocean, but they don't. They don't know the waves in Hawaii. So I had to talk them in to coming towards me because I knew that if in their panic they would grab onto me. So souls like that, you have to tell them, come up to the heart chakra. Begin to meditate upon the Lord, the mother of the universe, the wisdom coming from the scriptures, your guru and his graciousness. Meditate upon these things. Bring your consciousness up to a high level. Let that run in your mind for a while to open up all these nadis that you see here. This person is in bliss. Their eyes are rolled up to the third eye, to the Ajna Chakra. And even when they open the eyes and look at the earth together, most of their consciousness remains at a high level. Remember how Ramakrishna said that? Naran, look at him. He's walking around, his clothes are wrinkled, his hair is disheveled, and his eyes are rolled up in his head, and he's looking like he's seeing something in the sky. See? So that's the look of a person who's got that mystical, visionary part of their inner being walking the yogic path already. They've got 1 foot already in Brahman and have left 1 foot behind on earth for you. So that's why these nadis need to be opened and kept open. Here in Hawaii, we can take a machete up here on the hill, cut a path through the bamboo forest, and then come home, wait a few months, go back, where's that path again? Bamboo is the fastest growing grass in the world, they say. You can almost see it grow if you watch it. So that's what happens when you cut a path through something. It grows back and you lose that path. It's like getting caught in the fog when you're driving. All of a sudden you can't see the road. So you must keep that machete sharp and ready, that Vajrasuchika, that diamond needle, ready to penetrate through any form of ignorance that's coming your way. And that way make yourself qualified for walking this path and maintain it. So this, in terms of the mystic then, I'm talking about you keep these nadis open by running words through your mind. That's as simple as it can be put. You keep them open by running words of great profundity through your mind, like memorizing slokas. Father of yoga knew that taught it as one of the niyamas of yoga, right? Swadhyaya. It's one of the three tenets of Kriya Yoga, Swadhyaya. Or if they only will just look at the scriptures, read them, and memorize them every day, ignorance will not have will not find any purchase in them anymore. These nadis will open up and they'll be filled with the light of the visionary because I used the sound of the mystic to get there. So here's some of the results of keeping your mind open for a while. One's called, you remember your divine heritage. So the other's called, you remember the time of your past lifetimes. So these two are very connected to each other on purpose. Basically, you remember you've had many lifetimes, you've lived before, and you're still here. You say, oh, great, you remember your past lifetimes. What's your conclusion about that? And they can't tell you. Well, then you have to tell them. It means that you never died. Obviously, you're still here because you're still taking lifetimes. So what is it that's maintaining the the production of the body and your consciousness flowing into it again and again along nadis from heaven to earth to lower to patalas and back. And what is it that's propelling you beyond the desire for transmigration, which has become a great attachment to 7 billion people on earth? Get rid of your fascination with taking on bodies, the Buddha said, and waking up to the truth. So this is one of the advantages to finding out that you've lived other lifetimes. It's not to know what you did before. It's not to know who you were, because you were just another ego in your past lifetime. The greatest efficacy of realizing that is that you're still here and that you'll always be here, that you never died. Namrachor Nashanka Name Jati Beta. You know, I never have a death. Why is that? Because I was never born, my son, Shankara said to his disciple. So this is the way of ajati, or non-birth, non-death. So this gets put together pretty soon, and you get interested then in where did I come from then as an individual being. Now I'm beginning to trace myself, my origins back in to the gods, to the goddesses, to virtuous ancestors, to the Trinity, to the mind-born sons of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, right back to the sun god and the avatars. I can trace myself right back to them. That's my origin. In other words, I'm following the path of light now, and I just saw myself as an emanation of light. That's my divine heritage. No more birth in the womb of matter for me, only emanation from my divine mother, right? As you've heard me sing several times. So these two are very powerful nadis to open up. One's remembrance of having lived before, and one's remembrance of who's your, if you want to put it humorously, who's your daddy? In our case, it would be, who's your mama, right? I come from the Divine Mother of the universe herself. I'm an emanation from her. Therefore, I can prove that I'm a visionary, because I've come by the light and I return by the light. And darkness has no more place in me. In the remaining 15 minutes here, we'll look at these other two nadis then. There's a nadi of awareness of the eternal moment. And I mentioned that earlier in class today, that time is illusory. Also, it has an efficacy of being cyclic. So if you see the cycles of time coming and going, particularly in conjunction with the different lives you've taken, which they say can count by the hundreds and thousands over long periods of time, like a Mahayuga, you can have many, many lifetimes in different worlds with different bodies. That's why you study your physical body, your mental body, and your causal body in deep sleep, as you know that they're timeless. The further in you go, the less time has an effect on you. The further out you come, the more time slows down and concretizes everything into objects and bodies. And people then fall for the concretization of things. The objects are real, spirit's not. You know, they mix, and they'll always mix. But I found out for myself that the real me is none but he, and never, never matter changing, as Vivekananda put it to us. The real me is none but he, means it's nothing but Brahman, and never, never matter changing. I was never a body. I was never an animal body. I was never a human body. I was never an angelic body in heaven. I was never the body of a god. Hasta Amalaka Stotram, first verse comes to me. You know, I am the Atman. I'm always the Atman, have always been the Atman. If I want to look for my divine heritage, I'll take it back to the sun god himself. Dharmaraja, who gives life and death in the different worlds. I decided to have a relationship with him. He's one of the forces under the Divine Mother's influence. So all of this takes time and cuts it down. One song in India says, practice meditation and cut time down. Basically, you think time is so real in your active life and it's running away with your life. So you stop and get a practice of meditation. All of a sudden, the time slows down. You're thinking, wow, 1 hour is really a long time to sit here. So you have effectively at that moment stopped time from happening in your mind. You do that in deep sleep tonight too. You can go into deep sleep for a few minutes and wake up and thought, how long was I been there? And time just stretches and becomes malleable or stops completely. Based on those understandings of time and your meditations with them, then you can realize that there's just really one eternal moment and all time is moving in cycles inside of that moment. Or if you want to put it, there's just one soul and all activities are happening in nature, not in the soul. Time, activities, space, all then get reduced down, dissolved down by the mind stream, by the fire of intelligence into one immortal, eternal state of existence. We call that Atman. I am Atman, all abiding. Then there's this nadi of foresight and omniscience that's going on in the enlightened mind that basically is aware of everything that's happened in the three phases of time. So this is how the nadis, the enlightened nadis, deal with the two cosmic principles of desha and kala. Desha is space, kala is time. So these are on the mind of not just luminaries and spiritual yogis and rishis and so forth. They're on the mind of intellectuals too, space and time. They're on the mind of the scientists, the physicists and so forth. But they're considering space and time to be actual and real, whereas the seers are looking at them and saying, I see that there are ideas in my mind and that I can outstrip them. What outstrips you? The Divine Mother and her intelligence is so swift that it outstrips everything that runs, the Upanishads say. That's that dynamic Shakti that we started the class out today talking about. So this is a bit of foresight that mounts up inside of you, like a lot of insights are prone to do, and then gives you this ultimate realization that I am all seeing. And that's when this eye opens up, which we looked at last week and called by 6 different names in different religions. White dove ascending, the blue pearl, the Jnana Chakshu, the Dharma eye, the single eye that Christ talked about. All of these openings here have to do with that ability to see time and space, which belong to Maya, fivefold Maya, time, space, name, form, and cause, effect, karma. That all belongs to the realm of relativity. Those things are constantly changing. I just saw them as happening in my mind, right? Before, I didn't have that facility because I didn't open the nadis to run higher consciousness around it. So since I didn't have that facility to see them as origins in my mind, I believed them to be actual out here. And that caused me to be a materialist. That materialism caused me to be an atheist. And pretty soon, matter was all that existed. I better go back to the laboratory, and study the separation between matter and spirit, between nature and soul, between sentiency and insentiency, between the eternal and the non-eternal, nicho nichanam, chetanas chetananam, between ignorance and intelligence. I better go back and study that so that I can reorient myself to the truth of existence. I had planned to go through this entire list with you. It would take another class to do so, but we can use the 8 minutes or so to do it quickly. These are bits of wisdom that are of a non-dual nature that are going to be very helpful if you want to follow the path of the mystic or the visionary to its ultimate goal. I mean, basically, These are things that have been forgotten, except in Indian philosophy, for the most part, in Vedanta and yoga and uh, Buddhism and other forms of Indian pathways that demonstrate so well the light and the sound of the visionary and the mystic. So penultimate wisdom required for perception of non-duality. You have to kind of think non-duality, that's an interesting word. If I look at it, then it means the disappearance of the many, disappearance of five senses, five elements, the disappearance of the three states of my consciousness, the disappearance of the twofold dualities, and all the numbers are now beginning to diminish. 5, 4, 3, 2, then I got one. And then I find out that it's even beyond the one, that God can't be called one, it has to be called not two, as the Zen Buddhists say. Basically, then all of a sudden you've come down to the truth of non-duality and you have some sort of ground upon which to meditate upon it. That will be proof to you when you cut your cut time down in meditation, your thoughts go away, your vrittis cease. I stop thinking. And all of a sudden you come out of that and say, what happened? It was sort of like deep sleep, only I was doing it consciously in meditation. I must have had the breath of life in there somewhere. I must have had a conscious moment, a really conscious moment. I must have awakened from bonds and gained freedom. From sleep awake, from dreams awake, from bonds be free. I must have had a moment where I was neither sleeping nor dreaming, and I saw the light of consciousness within me. Vision time, and the visionary steps forward, right? And the path of molten light is there. And I can trace it all back to the teachings I heard from my teacher, which were sound. So Adidaiva Vidya steps forward first, that original divine wisdom. Knowing and affirming this divine wisdom is going to be something that we need to do here in the West to recall it. I've got 24 words for you in which you can do that with. They're called cosmic principles or tattvas, and they're in a perfect order. And it's given to us by an ancient seer named Lord Copula. So we have to relearn the Adidaiva Vidya. Many of my students have been doing that for 30 years now in SRV. Shishtisthitilaya. That's a beautiful 3 words there. Knowledge of projection, sustenance, and dissolution. Nothing happens in the soul. We keep saying that. So what is this power of projecting, sustaining, and dissolving, which used to be called creating, preserving, and destroying, right? What is that? Where's that coming from? Where's the infinite impetus for that? In my mind is where that is. And that's why the mind of this being is flowing with higher, timeless, spaceless, birthless, deathless ideas are going along the nadis of this being. Subtle nadis. Ideas and thoughts were brought together, raised in their vibration, and put into those nadis like an injection of Brahmagyan, and started to flow through the whole system to waken it up. So I have to question Srishtisthitilaya, because that's what everyone's basing life upon, is that we were created, then all of a sudden we're in a period of preservation. It's called birth and life, and then all of a sudden we're gone forever, dissolution or death, destruction. Right? I have to question that now. It's just I can question it by looking at the principles, studying them, and then I find out that there's these 3 movements of a cosmic mind that has a collective component, that has an individual concomitant with it. And this is the mind, this critter called the mind, that's playing so many games with itself and creating so many worlds and moving, apparently so, from different levels of consciousness to another one, like in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And samasti sukshma is a nice word. Sharira bimani, cognizance of one's 3 bodies. Said that already? We can go on. It's basically you have a body in waking, in dreaming, and in deep sleep. Study them. Run the nadis into them. See them with your visionary eye. Acknowledge them. Be the first thing to do. Most people are just saying, I'm a physical body. So what is this mind? And what's my deep sleep? I don't have bodies there. We beg to differ, said the seers. Panchakasha, awareness of the 5 types of space, will help. Siddhanta Vakya Shravana means reaching the right conclusion about truths. Siddhanta means conclusion. Vakya are great sayings, like the slokas, the sutras, and the great conclusions of the seers. One of them being, I am Atma Brahma. This self is one with Brahman, right? And nobody can take that, not tune us away. Maya tries, but we shouldn't let it. Shabda Pramana means deep intuition that all of this is the self. All of this is Brahman. That's the path of the mystic to a T. Shabda means to hear. It's right there on that chart we had. You see, Jyoti and Shabda. Aparimita Drishti means holding the view that you transcend space and time. It's rather than letting yourself think that you're a being that was born in time, occupying space. That's what Maya made you think. Now turn it on its heels and say, space and time came out of my thinking process. I visited them with an embodiment. That's where you'll want to know your divine heritage in your many lifetimes, for instance. I visited them in an embodiment and I withdrew myself back to my source, and I can do that whenever I want. When I'm a master of that, it's called Leela. When I stumble, it's called Maya. That's aparimita drishti. Then layakrama, knowledge that there's an order to the dissolution of all tattvas, and you can make it happen. You're doing it every night in dream and deep sleep anyway. What happened to the 5 elements in your dream state? They turned subtle. What happened to it in deep sleep? They went away. These are honest answers to questions that aren't usually asked by the soul, by people in the West and in the world, physical world. But they have pat answers that are unarguable. Such Sat Chakra Nirupana means to ascertain the nature of your 6 centers, your 6 levels of awareness, or 7 if you count the crown of the head. It's a 7-tiered castle. It's been reported in Buddhism, it's been reported in Judaism, it's been reported in Kundalini Yoga, and there's versions of it in Vedanta too. So basically you have this 7-tiered castle inside of you throughout which the worlds of the Daharakasha are stretched from outer to inner. You came down through them when you take physical embodiment. So Sat Chakra, you want to know these chakras, these centers. Vaksiddhi means revelation of the secret and perfection in words. Of course, that's what the mystic excels in. I know the Vakdevi, I know the perfection of her words. Now I hear the words, I meditate on them, and I realize the truth of them. Shravana Mananandini Jasana, and then I come to the realization that the mystic always has. Both Vedana Shakti and Dharana Shakti are there. Realization of the cognitive power that's present in awareness. People think my awareness is either filled with a bunch of bad thoughts or it's empty when I meditate. But nobody says that my awareness has cognitive power in it. That's the missing subtlemost element, that you want to examine your own thinking consciousness, not just the thoughts, what's left over after the thoughts go away. That's looking at the emptiness of your mind. What's going to happen when you look at the emptiness of your mind? You're going to know that you're not the mind. You're number one. Number two, you're going to know there's a presence that's looking into the mind while it does all its operations. What operations? Shishti Sthiti Laya, Adidaiva Vidya. That's that mind that you want to look upon and see how much cognitive power it has and how much intelligence has been engendered in it. Finally, you have what we already mentioned earlier, on this other chart, Swarupa Gyan. There's an essence. Oneself as consciousness is called the Swarupa. And that's what gets meditated upon even further than the cognizance of your mind and its operations. Now I see that it can turn everything off, like it did in deep sleep last night, like it does in samadhi for the realized soul. And that's the on-off switch that the realized souls are looking for in different ways. The mystic looks for it in a way of seeing the word, going beyond the word, and the luminary looks at it in case of the appearance of the light and merging into the light. Jai Shri Guru. Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pado Padme Tvaya Shritva Pranamami Mahor Mahor Pranamami Mahor Mahor. O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, O Sharada, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both, ever be of mine. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.